It's a very apt topic considering that we are passing through the age of uncertainties. We have visceral adversaries covertly in the north and very overtly to the west. We have had certain incidents, and so the answer is war inevitable. As a war veteran and a scholar of international relations, my answer is unequivocally yes. But even as I'm talking to you here, there is war going on in every country, every region, every continent. Carries on 24/7, 365 days a year in, year out. Has been going on for centuries. Surprise? By the end of my talk, I'm sure I would have clarified all your doubts. So the first question that would emerge in your mind is, what is war? Well, the followers of von Clausewitz, who was a military theorist in the West, they would say that war is a clash of wills or a clash of arms. That's a very limited view of war. War is not just about clash of arms. Clausewitz himself, in his book, towards the end, had said, war is a continuation of politics by other means. So what does that imply? It implies that war is continuous and ongoing. So why was there a dichotomy in what Clausewitz wrote? When it uses Pakistan to curb your rise. They have a very apt saying in Chinese, killing with a borrowed knife. That is Kuta Yuddha. And finally, he mentioned Tushnim Yuddha is a silent warfare. It's warfare from inside your adversary's country. It's verily like termites which eat up the tree from inside and make it hollow, or a bookworm which eats up all your pages from inside the bound book without you realizing it. That is Tushnim warfare, and these two kinds, Kuta Yuddha and Tushnim warfare, carries on continuously. So the next question is, why does it carry on continuously? Nations don't live in isolation. You have your neighbors, and you have some close countries which are there within the region. Each nation has its core national interest. Essentially, everybody wants to be economically strong, militarily strong, and internally stable. No country desires anything else. But when you are wanting to be economically strong, your interests overlap. And that is where the problems start coming in. So to oversee your interest, you have to do down somebody else's interest. And that is where your Tushnim and Kuta Yuddha comes in, to denude the other person's interests. What is the aim? Like I said, to denude the national power. How do you do that? Break the will and the resilience of the nation and their power to resist you wherever your interests are overlapping. In the good old days of Chanakya and much further, these problems were more regional in nature. They depended more on human intelligence and the capacity to bribe the nobles and others to denude their power. And invariably, it led to a clash of arms, expanding your frontier. Why? Because the nations needed more region to be, they were agrarian, so they needed more agricultural land. They needed more mineral resources for their weapons. So everything was regional, the clash of arms. Today that is not so. The global interdependence, the globalization, economic interdependence, the digital outreach, your social media and electronic media outreach is vast. And so is the diaspora of each nation, which resides all over the world. So the reach of Tushnim and Kuta Yuddha is global today. And remember, you are also facing it within India, day in and day out. I'll give you two small examples. When the Kundamkulam nuclear reactor was to be expanded by the Russians, there was much strikes People came out on the streets for nothing, because the first two reactors were critical and there was just no problem with them. Why did they come out? There was a delay in all these projects and the nuclear plants growing critical. What did that achieve? In Latin, there is a very famous phrase which is used by criminal lawyers. Cui bono. C-U-I-B-O-N-O. Cui bono. Who gains? In international relations also, you have to keep questioning who gains. That's when you will be able to find out who was the hidden hand behind what is happening. It's not your local people, it's not your politicians. There will be somebody else behind. What did you lose? The policy makers will know. Similarly, a few years ago, based on a small incident, in the social media there was a flare-up against the students of the Northeast. And most of them from Bangalore and South wanted to run away back to their home states. And the Indian Railways had to block a lot of trains and run special trains for these students to go back. It took about a month or two for everything to normalize. Why did that happen? Imagine such a thing happening when there is a national emergency on. These are the kinds of warfare you have to be aware of. From here you come out to that I've been talking of national power. What is national power? What are the determinants? There are two schools of thought. The West has four pillars: cultural, economic, diplomatic, and military. Cultural is what is used for what they term as soft power. You find a whole lot of people, you never know how you get attuned to the Western culture. Like what we talk of our Bollywood culture, which is hitting the various streets, or our cuisine reaching the various markets. This is soft power. Military, diplomatic, and economic. These are used more for hard power. And a mix of these two is what is these days termed as smart power. The aim always remains the same: to break your will and to make sure that my nation's core interests overlap and subsume yours. You do not compete with me. Even if you're capable of competing with me, internally your will is not there to compete with me. That is the aim of these. Chanakya in his Arthashastra, and in Arthashastra he had written the Saptang theory, the 7 elements of power. And Deng Xiaoping in 85 had come to the same conclusion. Both Saptang theory and Deng Xiaoping's comprehensive national power of China has a fifth and a very important pillar, and that is the people. You may be economically strong, you may be militarily strong, you may be diplomatically strong, but if the people are not with you, you will not as a nation be able to stand up to somebody else. Remember what happened to US in Vietnam. The people were not with them and they had to pull out. So this power of the people is very important. You can create fissures within the society. You can cause commercial losses when people don't work properly. You can have financial and economic losses. You name it, the people are very important. If the people are with you, you are strong. Also, the power of a nation is never static. It expands and contracts with its own strength. Classic example is US. From the mid 19th till to the mid 20th century, the Americans followed the concept of Monroe Doctrine. Now, what exactly was Monroe Doctrine? It told the colonial powers of Europe of that time that the Americas, the continent of America, North and South America, was the American sphere of influence. And they would not interfere in Eurasia and Africa, while the colonial powers of Europe were not permitted to interfere in America. Now that changed the moment the Second World War finished. US became a superpower, had interests, global interests, not only in the Americas, but also in the Eurasian and African landmass. The only other power that was able to stand up to it was the Soviet Union. And so you had what was known as the Cold War. The fall of the Soviet Union converted the world to be under a unipolar power. And you had US going in for unilateral interventions around the world. What's happened now? Financially it is not strong. Now it needs allies for two things. A, to maintain the liberal democratic world order and institutions that it had set up post the Second World War. What's the second major thing coming? A rising China. A rising China with a contrarian narrative to what the US and the West have. It's an autocratic institution with Chinese characteristics, which does not hesitate to use geo-economic coercion to subsume nations, force nations to lose sovereignty over pieces of land over its territory. Classic case in our region, Hambantota in Sri Lanka, Gwadar in Pakistan. So these are the two narratives that the Americans find that they can't do themselves. So this was to give an example of how a national power rises and falls and what changes come. So that leads you to the question, is war inevitable? Again, yes, a clash of arms would be inevitable subsequently. Remember, the cost of a clash of arms or war as people understand in the classical sense is enormous, whether it be the human cost, the economic cost or the political cost. Economically, it will put back your country at least by 1 if not 2 decades of economic growth. So, when does war take place? You can be pushed into it. In military terms, we call it control of the escalation matrix. How the war escalates from one level to the other level, if you're not able to control it. Classic examples, what happened with us 47, 48, 1962 with China, 65 with Pakistan, 99 again with Pakistan. The other is you plan well in advance. So when you plan and do it, you do attain a certain degree of victory. Like what the Chinese did against you in 62. They planned it from 59. What we did to Pakistan in 71. Okay. Whichever way it goes, whether you're going to war, suddenly you're pushed towards it, or it's a planned event. Please remember, there must be clear political aim. Why are you going politically for war? For clash of arms, as we understand. Could be limited, could be far-reaching. Because it is from these political aims that your military aims and military objectives are designed. Point to note, even when the clash of arms is about to take place or is to go on, your Tushnim and Kuti Yudh don't stop. It is ongoing and continuous. All through. Now the military aims and military objectives are not only dependent on this political aim, it is also dependent on the type of enemy you face. The more obdurate, the more obstinate, and the more radicalized the enemy you have, even if your political aim is limited, your military aims have to be far-reaching. You will never achieve that political aim against such an enemy. Okay? So, having understood what is war, what are the various forms of war, how does clash of arms take place, the question arises, how should we prepare for it? So first thing has to be clear that we must educate ourselves. Because this Tushnim and Kuti Yudh operates in a grey zone. It is difficult to discern. So you have to educate yourself to be a discerning person, to be able to discern. For that, as a nation, we need to develop a strategic culture which we lack. That is why for over 1,000 years, people from outside have come and ruled us. Prior to that, you had a strategic culture. Post that, we have forgotten our strategic culture. We live like a frog in a well, that if I am okay, everything is okay. No, it's not okay. Because what you desire today could overlap somebody else's desire. Like I said, nations don't live in isolation. Should also not get hysterical over any black swan event. What's a black swan event? a very surprise event which has a major impact. Something like what happened when our parliament was attacked. 26/11, what happened in Mumbai. Don't get hysterical. Or what we call in international relations, grey rhino events. A grey rhino, what are grey rhino events? These are highly probable events, has high impact, like the terrorism strikes that are going on in India. You must have a long-term vision and strategy to use your to strike at the cause. You need to be proactive. Surgical strikes, all said and done, very good optics, because it shows your military in a good light that they are well prepared. But it is at a tactical level. When you're reactive, you need to be proactive to protect yourselves. So you need to cater for your multiple domains, capabilities in all domains. Like I told you, in every domain there will be a thrust. The Chinese call it unrestricted warfare. There was a book published in 1999. It covers military, trans-military, non-military domains. It's virtually a country which is at war 24/7, 365 days a year with everybody else. Don't fool yourselves. The Americans call it full spectrum dominance. And they've been past masters, have been at it for a number of years, decades. The Chinese have learned from it. When they went to US in the 80s and started studying it. We need to get our house together. You need to be economically strong, militarily strong, and your human resource needs to be strong and resilient to be able to counter such threats. To conclude, I would say that war, as people understand typically, a clash of arms, is a very expensive proposition. So, you need to make sure that you protect your own turf. And for that, you need not be hesitant, and you must use your Dushman warfare capabilities and acute warfare capabilities 24/7, 365 days a year to denude the power of your known adversaries and also your future competitors. In the military parlance, there is a very nice adage. The more you sweat in peace, the less you will bleed in war. It's not just for the military, it's for the nation. And since you are the future leaders, so I have forewarned you. To be forewarned is to be forearmed. So all I tell you is finally, prepare or perish.